For you this hour, there's been a change of heart in U.S. policy. Washington will now allow citizens to pay ransom to rescue family members taken hostage. Barack Obama promising to share intelligence to help get loved ones back. That's stories at RT.com. Also, feline the power. Our website's crawling with cats, including one fearless Moggy who scared off an Alaskan bear. You'll also see footage of another pussy who proved to be less brave in the face of a mountain lion. Those videos at RT.com this hour. It's now been almost a week since the round-the-clock unrest began in Armenia's capital. Protesters in Yerevan came out in a show of anger against a sharp increase in electricity prices. They've been blocking streets and stopping the traffic. The large crowds have been occupying the street on the way to the presidential palace. There were an estimated 4,000 people there overnight. And demonstrators have been building barricades to resist the police. There is, though, a heavy police presence trying to stop people getting through to the palace. Ilya Petrenko reports from amid the crowd.
The working day in Yerevan is over, and now thousands of protesters have come back to this main street of Yerevan to continue their protest, just as we've seen in the last few days.
Уже понимать, что я очень мало зарабатываю. Я должна платить, да, за электроэнергию. И он это очень замечает всегда. Он в курсе всего нашей семьи.
Когда все кричат, я тоже говорю вперед, молодежь.
The closer we get to the area where the police cordons are, they're guarding the government compounds. We can see more and more sit-ins like that, and the numbers are growing. So far, I haven't seen a single police officer within this crowd. I want to get closer to the police cordons that are currently guarding the government compound, but it's getting more and more difficult because of the huge numbers of protesters in the streets. I have finally reached the area where the barricades are. It was quite a difficult thing to do because the crowd of protesters standing shoulder to each other stretched for hundreds of meters. Well, here, nothing has really changed since the morning, except for the number of protesters on that side. In this area, it's quite quiet. The police is standing here holding their line of defense. Of course, they're protecting the government compound. Well, I can tell you that judging by the number of people standing here, the protests will go well into the night. The key demand is still the same: cancel that decision to raise the electricity prices.
Well, that was our evening correspondent, not just Ilya Petrenko there during the evening hours. Let's bring you live pictures right now from Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. The protesters, difficult to see there, that you can hear them though. They're hiding underneath the trees, in the shade of those trees, but they've put together one impressive barricade of dumpsters there in the street. We've been monitoring them all morning, putting that barricade together. I doubt the police are going to be too thrilled. You can hear the crowds now chanting from underneath the shade of those trees. They're very upset about a hike in energy prices, 16% on the rise, coming into effect on August the 1st. Though this is, in fact, the third time that prices have gone up for electricity in 3 years. Never before, though, have the people staged such a near week of demonstrations. Live pictures. Well, the events in Armenia have led some analysts to draw some curious parallels. The Wall Street Journal, for example, comparing the situation in Yerevan to Kiev last year, saying the strategy used by the Armenian people is reminiscent of one used by anti-government protesters in Ukraine that saw the ousting of the former President Yanukovych. And some experts on the region go even further, saying that events both in Ukraine and Armenia may have been orchestrated and sponsored from outside.
Let's not forget how important
change that the neoconservatives in Washington desire to accomplish. This particular protest, it may be innocent, it may be a legitimate protest, but even if it is, Washington will make an effort to turn it into more. Sometimes Washington will originate the protest, other times it waits for one to happen. I mean, we saw this perfectly in Ukraine. All of these so-called color revolutions are a product of the National Endowment for Democracy's funding. And the money is also used by politicians who will line up with Washington.
And assessing those demonstrations through the eyes of social media, RT's In the Now.
There are plenty of attempts on social media to add ingredients to this cocktail of discontent, mostly about the economy, and make it about politics. Photos from the Armenian protests with EU flags in the midst of crowds are being spread on Twitter. Look familiar? Some users say they're fake. We thoroughly studied video files from major global agencies, and the rally didn't see any EU flags. The most popular hashtags are Electric Yerevan and Armenia Maidan. There's no need to explain that parallel. The most popular hashtag in Russian is Electro Maidan. There was even a Twitter page created under this name, which contains tweets from the protests and thank yous to the U.S. government. And then there are media outlets like the U.S. state-sponsored Radio Free Europe and Euronews, who picked up the brand name. The Washington Post has gone further than that. They already have someone to blame. And yes, it's Russia. I think I know how this plays out. So, Armenia, watch out.
It's RT International. A recent Gallup poll taken in America found only half of those asked had confidence in the police. It's the lowest level in 22 years, and it follows a string of incidents of abuse involving the policeman, like the young man with a mental illness who died in custody earlier this year. Keaton Farris was detained after failing to appear in court on accusations of financial fraud. While in jail, he was restrained and tasered despite trying to explain he had bipolar disorder. Farris was deprived of medication and water, often left unchecked for hours. The man finally died in his cell of dehydration after spending 3 weeks behind bars. Now, following the death, the deputy was suspended for a month. The local sheriff then admitted misconduct and apologized to the family of the victim. We spoke to Farris's father.
It's so harrowing and so ridiculous, the amount of neglect, torture. I mean, there it was, hours and hours would go by without there being, a check. Not even within their own protocols, which fall way short anyways. Just blatant disregard. I mean, they treated him, subhuman. He wasn't able to feed and drink on his own. He relied on these people to give him that. They turned the water off on his cell, and after it got flooded, because nobody checked on him for hours, so they didn't even know what was going on in that cell. My theory is he was crying out for help because nobody was checking it.
Coming up next here on RT International, the Kaiser Report. Max and Stacey discussing the chances of a Grexit and a Brexit. Coming your way next.